Hello artists, and welcome to Creativity Time with Julia Major, where we explore the creative process and learn artistic tricks and techniques. If that sounds fun to you, I really hope that you like and subscribe. Today we're going to be talking about making your own gels and gobos to make a light show on your ceiling. So we'll talk a little bit more about what the difference between a gel and gobo is in a minute, but here are some examples. And of course, the bat signal. There's a lot of different supplies that you can use to make this art project. So instead of listing them all here, I'm going to put it down below because there's a lot of different possibilities and you do not need all of the different supplies. It is extremely helpful to have some colored Sharpies, but if you don't have them, don't stress. There are other ways to do this. So there are a lot of different studio habits that connect to what we're doing today. It was really hard for me to pick just two, but I decided I wanted to focus in on understanding the art world and the studio habit reflect. Lights are such a huge part of the art world, and we often kind of forget them because when lights look great, we often don't notice them because they're lighting something else. But one of the most important pieces of advice that an actor can get is to find your light. Light is a huge part of the theater world. It's also really important for galleries and shows. I once went to a really big art show where the paintings were phenomenal, but they were poorly lit, so there were these sort of blue lights in the middle of the faces on the painting that were not intentional, and it was extremely distracting, and it really made me realize, like, I hadn't noticed the lights before, I hadn't appreciated them, but when they were off, it was ruining the whole experience for me. And they also use them for events like football. So in sporting events, lights are a huge thing. And of course, right now I'm being lit. The people who run lights are often called light technicians. And the people who design lights are called, you guessed it, light designers. And two of the things that they sometimes use are gels and gobos. A gel is something that changes the color of a light. I'm putting this white paper behind it so you can really tell what the design is, because without it, it's very difficult to tell. But a gel changes the colors of a light. So if you want to make a light blue or purple or red, you use a gel. And then a gobo is something that changes the shape of a light. And you may recognize this gobo here because I actually used it for another video, how to make your own stencils. That video is super useful for if you want to make a gobo. I'm going to talk a little bit about making gobos here, but for more information, if you just take the video on how to make your own stencil, those stencils work perfectly well as gobos too. So this would go in front of your light and then it's going to change the shape of it. So you would have the image of a mouse lit up on to your ceiling. Actually, normally a gobo stands for go-between, so it would go between the light and a lens, but for us, we're just going to put it in front of our phone that we're using as a light or a traditional flashlight, and it's basically a stencil for your light that makes that image up on the ceiling. And of course, you can combine those two things. A lot of times, lighting technicians and designers won't combine them because they want to have the freedom of mixing them up and using two at a time. But for us, it's often really helpful to make something that is both a gel and a gobo. I also wanted to just tell you a little bit about how I came up with this because I think it's interesting. I always talk about how important strong mistakes are. When I first was trying to do some variant of this, I was really little. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I'd read a book and they talked about how you could put tinfoil in front of a flashlight to make different images. I tried it. It barely worked. I mean, it pretty much didn't work. The tinfoil was ripping on me. It was really frustrating. I did not consider it an artistic success. But over 10 years later, I started teaching, and it was that art project that gave me the idea of, ooh, you could make your own gels and you could make your own gobos. You can make them by using cellophane, which is sort of a clear colored plastic that comes in different colors like blue and red and green. You can get in all sorts of colors, and I thought you could make that to make a gel, and then you could combine it with construction paper and things to make a gobo. And then more recently, I was reflecting on it and I came up with an even better version using Sharpie. But this version works really well too. I don't recommend the tinfoil version, but I'll talk about this one a little bit as well. So for this gel, I used the top of a pie container because I noticed it already came in the sort of plastic with a frame that I wanted. But don't worry if you don't have something like this. I'm going to talk about how you can make it later. But I want to just talk about if you happen to have something that is plastic with a little frame like this, you can just go ahead and draw on it with Sharpie. Draw whatever images you want. It can be hard to see them though, so I do recommend that you put a piece of white paper behind, and that will really let you see where you have and haven't gotten. I recommend going with a little bit darker color of Sharpies. So I did use some yellow here, but that's going to be kind of faint. So using some bolder, more dramatic Sharpies is probably going to show up well. Lots of colors can be fun. And just do whatever kind of design you want. You can make it any subject matter that you want. If you want to base it on an object, the cool thing you can do is what I did here. So I used a clamshell container and I cut it in half. You might want to have an adult help you with that because this kind of plastic can be rather sharp. And then beneath the clamshell, I put an object. I put this pony, a G1 pony, and I put it behind it, and then it's kind of hard to see now, but I traced the pony, and it was really fun. It was fun tracing, and then after that, added in the other details, not by tracing. One thing you will notice is this pony does have white hair. You can't really draw on the white with a Sharpie. So instead, I changed parts of the hair to yellow, and then I decided that I wanted to add a little pink in there for flair. So you can take an artistic license. And of course, you can use this kind of clamshell even if you're not tracing an object, but it can be really fun to put the object underneath and trace it. If you want a color to be fainter, color it on just one side of your plastic. But if it's not showing up well enough and you want it to be brighter, you can go back in and color both the inside and the outside. So that'll double your color. And then this last one I wanted to show is for if you can't find something that already is like this, like the clamshell. I guarantee almost everybody is going to have, if you have a cereal box or a soda container with that thin cardboard, you can fold it in half, get a rectangle, and then cut in the middle to make a sort of frame. And then using that frame, you can use any kind of plastic and either tacky glue it on or use tape. This is one of the rare times when I kind of prefer tape. The issue with the tacky glue is if you get it anywhere else in the middle of your gel or gobo, it's going to create this sort of foggy effect. It's not the end of the world, but you may want to just use tape. So this bat signal that I made, I just used tape. I took an asparagus bag and then I cut it up into a rectangle. I made it bigger than I thought I needed. It's always better to go on the bigger end of things. And then I made little tape squares that hopefully you can kind of see here. And I taped the frame on, and then I cut out a construction paper Batman symbol. And you can find more on how to do that, by the way, in the video that I made on how to make magical opening flowers. I talk about how to make this bat signal as well. And then I just taped it on there. And this is both a gel and a gobo because I colored around it with Sharpie, so you can color and change the color of the lights, but I also changed the shape by blocking out the light by creating this construction paper image. And you could do it the other way, like this. This is actually, like I said, a stencil I made that you can use as a gobo too. So there are so many different options for how you can do this, the subject matter that you can do this. As an alternative to the Sharpie, if you want, you can use colored cellophane. And so instead of using like the asparagus plastic like I use, you could use colored cellophane. And if you don't have a asparagus bag or other kind of plastic, you can use a Ziploc bag. I recommend trying to find something other than a Ziploc bag so you don't have to cut up a perfectly good Ziploc bag for this. This is a great way to reuse some recyclables because reuse is even better than recycle. And then all you're going to do to make a light show with these is you're going to turn on the flashlight on your phone or use a normal flashlight, turn off all your lights first, aim at the ceiling and put your light like this, and when you move away, your image will get bigger, and when you move closer to the ceiling, your image is going to get smaller, so you can actually play around with it. It is amazing how big these images can get. This pony here can get as big as me on the wall, or bigger. The bigger it gets a little fainter, which is why it's nice to start with some bold colors. But it is so cool and it is so exciting. So I cannot wait for you guys to see that and try that. Thank you for coming to Creativity Time with Julia Major. If you liked this, I hope you will share it with a friend. And of course, have a very colorful day.